we shall continue with the same chapter which we are discussing in the previous class. So in the previous class we started discussing unit 9.8 epidemiological anthropology in paper 1, isn't it? Unit 9.8 paper 1 epidemiological anthropology. So we discussed about various diseases caused by viruses, bacteria, protozoans, and a few sexually transmitted diseases, isn't it? So we were discussing all of that, and we also discussed few lifestyle related diseases that are like diabetes mellitus and hypertension, and then we also discussed about cancer and so on. So now we shall discuss about nutrition. So how much we know about nutrition? We know a lot, isn't it? So right from our very young age, whenever you are having food, your parents would have told you, eat a lot of nutritious food, that gives you strength, it makes you strong, and so on. So what does a food comprise of? A complete meal is a balanced meal. So it is not like what we have fast food nowadays. We go to KFC and McD and Subway, and all these are, though they are tasty and give us a lot of happiness when we eat it, it's fast food. We just grab it on the go, we consume it and we move on. But actually a balanced meal should comprise of proteins, carbohydrates, lipids or fats, and adequate quantities of vitamins, minerals, and so on. So there are three major nutrients. They are the building blocks, that is carbohydrates, proteins, and proteins are the building blocks, isn't it? So we have three important component of a food that which we consume, that is proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. And in addition to that, we also have vitamins, right? Vitamins A, D, E, K, B, and so on. Then we also have minerals. We also need roughage. Roughage is nothing but fiber. Fiber-rich food is also very important for the easy bowel movement, isn't it? So all these, a complete meal or a total meal, a nutritious meal should comprise all of this. It should not be devoid of any of these nutrients. It should comprise adequate quantities of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, and so on. So if we are continuously taking a diet which is devoid of minerals, which is devoid of other vitamins, or it is devoid of the nutrients which are necessary for our body, then we start getting diseases or disorders, isn't it? So now we should start discussing about vitamins. So vitamins and minerals are very important, and they are called as micronutrients, whereas carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins are called as macronutrients, isn't it? So nowadays there is this concept of total protein diet. Many people, whoever wants to lose weight, they start consuming only proteins, and they completely do not take in any carbohydrates at all, isn't it? Especially people who go to work out in the gym, they start their day with a protein shake, and then again some protein rich foods like chicken or some meats, or fish or lean proteins, something like that. So they completely take a diet which is essentially, completely having more amount of proteins and very much negligible amount of carbohydrates or not. Even that leads to many problems. Okay, so yes, if we have to lose weight, we have to cut down on carbohydrates, we have to cut down on fatty foods, that is the foods which are deep fried in oil, the sweets, sugary items, these fast food items, all these need to be cut down. But going to extreme diets, thinking about reducing weight by completely cutting down carbohydrates, can also become dangerous sometimes, and that also leads to many problems. Okay, so we shall be discussing what the deficiency of each of these nutrients causes to our body. First we shall discuss about vitamins. So under vitamins we have A, B, C vitamin, D vitamin, E, K, B1, B12, and so on, isn't it? So there are fat soluble vitamins and water soluble vitamins also. So under vitamins we have two kinds of vitamins, that is fat soluble vitamins and water soluble vitamins. So vitamins A, D, E, and K, these are the fat soluble vitamins. So what happens when we take a diet which has vitamins A, D, E, and K, and we do not include any fats or oils in that food, these A, D, E, K vitamins will not get absorbed by our body, and instead it will get flushed out. isn't it? So the whatever food we are consuming, it should have adequate quantity of all the nutrients, be it carbohydrates, be it proteins, be it fats also. Okay, either even when we are making salads, that is why we include some sort of fats in that, isn't it? So when we make fruit salads, usually we include dry fruits like almonds or cashew and pistachio, which are a source of fat, or which are a source of lipids or fats, using which the vitamins, which are essential vitamins, can get dissolved in that. However, when we take vegetable salads and all, you must have seen whenever, usually in restaurants also, and even when we prepare at home, even if we are taking a total veg salad as a total meal, even in those cases we have to add few drops of olive oil or any other source of fat into that salad, so that when we are consuming a vitamin rich, okay, when we are taking a vitamin rich food, and if that vitamins are A, D, E and K, and if there's no fat that is available for them to get dissolved and absorbed into the body, then there is no use, it will just get flushed out of the body, isn't it? So these vitamins, that is vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E and K, these are the fat soluble vitamins, and all other vitamins are the water soluble vitamins. We have learnt all of this during school days itself, isn't it? So fat soluble vitamins and other vitamins like vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin B12, all these vitamins are water soluble vitamins. So what does vitamin A do? Vitamin A is very essential for healthy skin, eyesight, normal vision and so on, isn't it? So if you see people wearing spectacles, you automatically know they did not take all these words into practice during their young age. So it is where I said that you should consume 1 carrot every day to have a very good eyesight. Okay, even otherwise through genetics also it happens. If your parents or grandparents have been wearing spectacles, so automatically from a very young age you will also have a short sight or long sight or short sight. Which one do young people get? Tell me. So you must have seen elderly population, they wear spectacles which is bifocal, isn't it? There will be a line. So nowadays we have in a single lens itself, they make it bifocal. But earlier days, if you saw, there used to be two different lenses which are attached together, and there used to be a line over here. Those used to be called as bifocal. So the elderly people, they had problems seeing distant objects also, and they had problem reading while reading also. So the closer objects also, they had difficulty in reading. So those people, those elderly population used to use that bifocal lens. So which is long sight and which is short sight? Tell me. Okay, fine. Then vitamin B1, again it is very much important for heart muscle, okay, and it promotes growth and for energy, isn't it? So again you have various sources where we get vitamin B1, B2. So all these vitamin B's together, that is B1, B2, B12, B3, B6, all of these together, it is called as the B complex, isn't it? So it will be also better if you can know the chemical names of all these vitamins. Okay, say for example vitamin C. Vitamin C is called as ascorbic acid. Vitamin E is called as tocopherol, isn't it? So sometimes in prelims you have had these questions. So they would have mentioned some 3-4 chemical names, and they'll ask you which vitamin is that. So we know commonly we know vitamin A, B, C, E, D, K and all this, but we do not know the chemical names. Which vitamin is riboflavin? Okay, so just try to know all these things. Okay, so we have vitamin B3 and vitamin B6, B12, vitamin C, which became very popular now, especially after COVID times, because it helps to strengthen the immune system. Many people started taking vitamin C tablets after either before getting COVID or when they got COVID, or overall generally to improve the immune system. So vitamin C is very essential for that. And vitamin D, that is the free vitamin which we are getting in our nature, isn't it? The vitamin D which we get from sunshine. However, many people now, they are deficient of vitamin D, and whenever you go to doctors and complain of tiredness or other problems and all, they'll tell you probably you have less amount of vitamin D, and they'll prescribe either capsules or even get powders, vitamin D sachets. So they will ask you to mix that powder in a glass of water and consume it. So nowadays vitamin D, which we get free of cost also, people do not have time to go out in the sunlight and utilize that vitamin, isn't it? So what happens when you have very less vitamin D in your body? So it leads to various problems, health problems, And many a times you also you would have observed that even less levels of vitamin D causes depression also. So I'm not telling that vitamin D level, if it goes down, like vitamin D deficiency is the only sole reason for depression. So there are thousands of reasons for depression, isn't it? So people feel sad, anxious based on the circumstances in their life. So what they are going through. So there are so many reasons for depression. But I have spoken to doctors and they have told me. So when a person comes complaining of sadness and they identify that they are depressed, usually the psychiatrist will ask the patient to go for a vitamin D test. So they will extract blood and they will check the vitamin D levels in the blood. So if vitamin D level also goes down, that also makes us depressed. Okay, that is why you can see that in most countries where it is very cold, in cold climatic countries like the Scandinavian countries and Baltic regions, Finland, Norway, Denmark, and even other countries where there's hardly any sunlight throughout the year, or if they have have summer months also, the summer which they have and the sunlight which they get during summer is equal to the sunshine or the sunlight which we get during winters. So they have very less of sunlight which they are getting exposed to throughout the year. As a result of that, you can find most cases of depression in these countries. Okay, many a times it happens to us also. We feel so moody when the environment, see, from last 1 to 1.5 months here in almost entire south of India, it was raining every day, and it was very cloudy and dark all the time. So automatically you do not have the energy, or you don't feel enthusiastic to get up from the bed and do work and all, isn't it? You feel somewhat low, right? So it is because, so sunshine is very, very important, right? Then vitamin E, again vitamin E is called as tocopherol, right? So vitamin E is also very essential, especially vitamin E is essential for skin health and hair health. Now we have so many creams they have been promoting, saying it contains vitamin E, isn't it? So you can find many YouTubers also using vitamin E capsules to give a massage to their skin, use it for their hairs and so on. So vitamin E is also very much important. And then vitamin K. Vitamin K also helps in clotting of blood. Okay, so there are various uses of vitamin, all these vitamins A, C, B, B6, B12, C, D, E, K, and all these vitamins, if there is a deficiency, again it leads to various problems in our body. So our diet should contain not just carbohydrates, proteins and fats. In addition, it should also contain all these essential vitamins and minerals such as calcium, iron, sodium, phosphorus, zinc, iodine and so on. So what is sodium very useful for? Sodium regulates and it controls the blood pressure. So we have sodium Na and K, which is responsible for our blood pressure. So when the sodium and potassium salts increase in our body, that is when we get high blood pressure, and when there is deficiency of sodium and potassium salts, that is imbalance or deficiency of that, then we have the low blood pressure, right? So that is why when a person has hypertension, the doctors will suggest that you have to consume a diet which is less of salt. Take less of salt and salty items like pickle and other deep fried foods which are usually high on salt, isn't it? So even otherwise, if you see any of the fast foods, be it any foods, be it sweet items or bakery items, or these pizza, burger, any fast food which you consider, either they will be very high in sugar or they will be very high in salt. So especially these packed and canned foods, isn't it? So these juices and ready to eat foods which is heavily processed, and it is available very easily in the supermarkets, be it biscuits and namkeens or anything, everything which is processed and it is packed and it is ready to eat. So all these foods, they might say that it is very, we have, it is less in salt or less in sugar and all, still it contains a very high amount of sugar and salts. Okay, that is why it is said that home cooked food is the best one, because we know what are the ingredients that is going into that. Whereas these highly processed foods will have lot of preservatives, and in addition to that, high concentration of salt, sugar and other chemicals also. Then phosphorus is required for the formation of bones and teeth. Then iron. Iron is very important for, it is an important constituent of hemoglobin for our blood, isn't it? Then iodine. Iodine helps in the secretion of thyroxine from the thyroid gland. So when there is an imbalance in that, then only you will have hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. So hyperthyroidism means when there is excess secretion of the thyroid hormone. So usually what are the symptoms of hyperthyroidism? You can find severe, usually very first symptoms are, you will have weight loss, then you will have a severe hair fall, you will feel tired, fatigue. So when you go and complain all these symptoms to the doctor, they will first advise you to go for a thyroid test. Okay, then they will see what is the level of thyroid hormones that is secreted, and they will prescribe tablets accordingly. And if thyroid is normal, then they will go for further other tests or try to identify what are the other reasons for this for these symptoms. Then hypothyroidism means when the body is secreting less of thyroxine hormone. So in these cases, again, you can find symptoms like weight gain. So even in hypothyroidism, you can observe hair fall, but you will find that people will be gaining weight. So even when they are having a regular diet and they are exercising properly, they have a proper food pattern, everything, still they will unusually gain weight. So that is because of hypothyroidism. So again, now suppose some of you are gaining weight from last 1 or 2 months because you are not going out because of COVID situation. You are just sitting and attending online classes and sitting and studying all the time. So that also might lead to weight gain. That doesn't mean you are also having hypothyroidism. Okay. Next, zinc, potassium, then roughage. Roughage, which means fiber-rich foods, isn't it? So most of the processed foods, why is it harmful for our health? Because it is devoid of any fiber, isn't it? Most of the processed foods, you can find that whether it is a sweet, savory, or it is a spicy food, the major component of that will be maida, which is the refined flour, isn't it? Maida, we call it as refined flour. So what is refined flour made out of? So the wheat flour, which is totally processed stage after stage after stage, and completely all the fiber from the atta is removed. Then the last component what we get is the refined flour, or it is called as maida. So it does not have any fiber at all, and that is not, because of that it is high in calories and it does not have any fiber, and because of that it is not good to consume it in huge quantities, isn't it? So refined flour is used in everything, be it from our pastas, even bakery items, cakes, pastries, sweets, pizza bases, isn't it? So pizza base also is made up of refined flour. So in almost all the processed foods, ready to eat food and fast foods, the major component will be refined flour. And in addition to that, they will add to this refined flour, they will add much more fatty items like cheese, mayonnaise, isn't it? Now it has become a fashion. For anything and everything, they are adding mayonnaise and cheese. So what is mayonnaise? Mayonnaise is nothing but the egg white and oil. So equal proportions of egg white and oil, they are mixed in a mixer. Then you get that mayonnaise, isn't it? So you can find in most of earlier, mayonnaise used to be used only in burgers or few dishes. Nowadays mayonnaise is used in every other Indian dish also. You can find mayonnaise in samosa, cheese in samosa. You can find even in chats they are adding cheese, mayonnaise, and even in our very own Indian foods like pav bhaji, everything they are adding cheese. Okay, so it has become a fashion to add cheese and mayonnaise in everything, especially when you go visit these street side food stores, food stalls on the street, because that is what gives a taste to the food, and many young population love it. They love the taste of mayonnaise and cheese, so they prefer having foods containing that. So that is why even the street vendors add that to anything and everything, even Indian dishes also, right? Have you all noticed this? Fine. So roughage is very important because it has high fiber content and it helps in the proper digestion and the bowel movement also. So what will happen if you have deficiency of any of these nutrients in your diet? Say I told you some people, because they want to lose weight and they want to gain more muscle mass, and people who are into bodybuilding, all of them, they take a diet which is completely devoid of carbohydrates and which is having only proteins. Actually, that is also not a good trend to follow. We have so many diets, isn't it? Keto diet, high protein diet, and what more diets can you, any of you all tell me what are the different diets people follow nowadays? So anybody and everybody, they take one before photo, say some 2-3 years back when they had excessive weight, they would have taken one picture. Then after that, after 2-3 years, they become very slim and fit, and they take a picture now and they post that on their social media, and they became they claim themselves as a nutritionist, and they start giving tips on how they lose weight, and everybody simply follows, isn't it? If you open YouTube, you'll have thousands of videos where they say, do this, you can, you just do this procedure, you can lose 5 kgs in a month, you can lose 7 kgs, 10 kgs in a month. So that is all just a clickbait, isn't it? So looking at the tag itself, we feel, okay, probably they're giving us some solution using which we can reduce our weight. Then you have to watch that entire video again. They will give you the same recipes only, lemon juice, honey, and you have to do some exercise, you have to take this, that, dry fruits, have salads, but people give in different ways. That's it. So ultimately, what will lead to weight loss is taking in less calories and using up more calories. Okay, so what we are doing is we have higher calorie intake. Okay, so intake of calories is high, whereas we are using less calories, that is we are spending, okay, we are spending or utilizing less amount of calories, but we actually have to do the opposite. So we have to take less calories and we have to use or burn out more calories. So that alone will lead to weight loss, and not any magical formula. Some people come up with all these magical pills and the powders and what not. There have been people who tried and tested all of this and say nothing else will work out other than having a proper calorie deficit food and proper exercise, both together, isn't it? So some people will say that no, you can eat any amount of food, whatever you want, and you just work out, still you can reduce your weight. No, that doesn't happen. Or some people say, I will do excessive weight, I will not eat food at all, I will just do exercises and still I will reduce weight. No, both of them go hand in hand. That is, you should have a calorie deficit diet also, and in addition to that, you should also follow proper exercise and workout. So both of them coupled together will only ensure in your weight loss, okay, or in getting fit, and not either one of them. Okay. So deficiency of carbohydrates leads to ketosis. So for a prolonged time, see, one day if you take a diet which is devoid of carbohydrate, nothing will happen. So for a prolonged time, for a few weeks or few months or even few years, when you stick on to a diet which does not have any carbohydrates, then it leads to a condition called as ketosis. Okay, so the prolonged fasting or carbohydrate restriction leads to ketosis. So when no carbohydrate is available, the liver will not break down the fat completely. Instead, it produces ketone bodies. Okay, and these ketone bodies are utilized by the cells to provide energy. So when ketone bodies are produced more quickly than the body needs, then it leads to this condition called as ketosis. And it is commonly caused by a very low carbohydrate consumption or prolonged fasting. Okay, so when you are taking a diet which is completely devoid of carbohydrates for a very long time, the liver starts producing ketone bodies, and the ketone bodies composition in your body will increase. So that condition is called as ketosis. Okay, then proteins. So ketosis is one problem which happens when you are having a diet which is devoid of carbohydrates for a very long time. Then in another one is hypoglycemia. What is hypoglycemia? So low blood sugar is called as hypoglycemia. So you must have noticed people having diabetes complaining of hypoglycemia very often, isn't it? So suppose they will be habituated to taking food and tablets at the right time. Say by chance that day because of some other activity they did not take the tablet, or they missed the food, or their breakfast timing or their lunch timing got delayed by half an hour. Immediately you can find them that they become very tired, they get giddiness. That is because the sugar level in the blood drops. That condition is called as hypoglycemia, that is low blood sugar. Okay, at that time you can find them complaining about tiredness, weakness, lightheadedness. So it happens to us also, right? Sometimes when we go to the exam, or when we are in a rush, we are rushing to college or somewhere else, we do not have time to have a breakfast. So what happens after some time, you start getting giddiness and lightweightedness, and you also sometimes faint and fall. So that is because of hypoglycemia, that is low blood sugar. Okay, so again that is also because of less amount of carbohydrates. And ketosis also because of prolonged diet, which when we are taking a prolonged diet which is devoid of carbohydrates, it leads to ketosis. Now moving on to protein deficiency diseases. So when you are taking a diet which is devoid of proteins, it leads to a condition called as marasmus. Marasmus is a form of severe malnutrition, and it can occur in anyone who has severe malnutrition, but usually it occurs in children in the poorly developed countries. Say when they show children in African countries, in poor African countries, they'll show how bad their condition is. So they are suffering from marasmus because of severe malnutrition. So here in marasmus, the main symptom is being underweight. The children will not have the same weight which their counterparts will be having in developed countries. So say for example, at 3 years of age, the child normally should have a particular weight. These children, because of malnutrition, they will have a lesser weight than that. Okay, so they would have lost a lot of muscle mass and subcutaneous fat, and they will have dry skin and brittle hair, and they may look older. They won't be having any energy. Okay, so here if the children don't take enough of protein, calorie deficit diet, carbohydrates and other nutrients due to poverty and scarcity of food, it will lead to the condition called as marasmus. Okay, then another disease caused due to protein deficiency is kwashiorkor. Kwashiorkor. Okay, so kwashiorkor is also similar to marasmus. Okay, it is also caused due to malnutrition caused by the lack of protein. And here you can find that the children will have extremely thin or weak body. Only their stomach will be bulging, whereas the limbs, that is the hands, legs, everything will be very thin, isn't it? So this is called as kwashiorkor, and that swelling of the stomach or that swelling in the body is due to the edema, that is fluid getting filled inside the body. This condition is called as kwashiorkor. So again, you can very commonly find children in least developed countries or developing countries having kwashiorkor because of the malnutrition. Okay, so they may not grow or develop properly, and they may remain stunted throughout their life. So it is the lack of protein which is leading to this condition called as kwashiorkor. Here also you can find they will have fatigue, they will have loss of muscle mass, okay, they will have a damaged immune system and so on. Almost every year you must have noticed this news in the newspaper that few children in Bihar, they will die because of consumption of lychee. Have you read this? Yes or no? So you might wonder, see, even we all have lychee, right? Lychee is such a tasty fruit and you get it only once in a year. So when we get that, we make sure that we buy enough quantities of that and satisfy our cravings for lychee once in a year. But why do these children who consume lychee, they die? So have you noticed, or have you started, or have you tried to know why is it that children almost every year in Bihar, they die because of consumption of lychee? So what is going wrong? We are also consuming lychee, but nothing is happening to us. Why only the kids over there are dying because of consumption of lychee? Tell me, let's see. How many of you all will give me the right answer? Okay. Then iodine deficiency. So iodine deficiency, already I told you, iodine is a very important hormone and it controls the metabolism. Okay, it controls the metabolic activities and other important functions in our body, and a lack of iodine can cause abnormal enlargement of the thyroid gland. So we have thyroid gland here, and that is called as goiter, isn't it? So when there's iodine deficiency, there will be swelling of the thyroid glands, and there is low level of thyroid hormones, which is called as hypothyroidism. And that the hypothyroidism, typically you can observe by symptoms such as fatigue, increased sensitivity to cold, dry skin, weight gain. I already told you. So unusually, when you are having a normal diet, regular diet, and you're still exercising, you're active, physically very active, still if you're unusually gaining weight, then there is chances that it might be hypothyroidism. Okay, so these are the various symptoms of hypothyroidism, and even depression, all these. So there are treatment options for that as well. So they will prescribe tablets for that. Okay. Then mineral deficiencies are also there. So before moving on to mineral deficiencies, let us first look into what fats are. So fats, I already told you. We discussed what happens when there is a deficiency of carbohydrates, that is hypoglycemia and ketosis. And when there is a deficiency of proteins, so extreme malnutrition leads to kwashiorkor and marasmus. And then fats, again I told you, fats, we have fat soluble vitamins which are A, D, E and K, and then we have water soluble vitamins which are other vitamins like vitamin C, vitamin B1, vitamin B12, vitamin B9, vitamin all these other vitamins. Okay, so what happens when we have deficiency of these vitamins? So vitamin A deficiency leads to loss of vision and keratomalacia. So deficiency of vitamin D. So these deficiencies are very important. Okay, you should know what are the different vitamins, what are the sources of those vitamins, and what are the function of these vitamins in our body. Okay, and then if there's a deficiency of these vitamins, what diseases it will cause in our body, isn't it? So this is important. So vitamin A deficiency causes loss of vision and keratomalacia. So what is keratomalacia? Keratomalacia means drying and clouding of the cornea, isn't it? So you must have usually seen elderly people at home after a certain age of 50 years or 60 years, they get their vision becomes dull because of the growth of white layer over their eyes, right? That is surgically removed. So that is different. This is different. Okay, this is keratomalacia, which is the drying and clouding of the cornea. Okay. Then vitamin B1. Okay, vitamin B1 deficiency. This is vitamin A. So vitamin B1 deficiency leads to a condition called as beriberi. Beriberi. Okay. So in this condition, they will have weak muscles and very little energy to work. Then vitamin B2 Okay, vitamin B2 is called as riboflavin. Vitamin B2 is called as riboflavin, and the deficiency is called as araboflavinosis. And then vitamin B3 deficiency leads to a condition called as pellagra. So here this is a disease which is marked by dementia. Dementia means decline in memory. So as people age after 50-60 years, their memory starts reducing. So that condition is called as dementia. And dermatitis also, that is inflammation, redness, itching of the skin, that is called as dermatitis. So all these are the symptoms of pellagra. Then vitamin B5 deficiency leads to paresthesia. Paresthesia means sometimes you will have a tingling sensation in the feet, isn't it? So tingling sensation in the feet, arms, hands, legs, in the foot. So all this is paresthesia. Then vitamin B6 deficiency leads to anemia, right? So vitamin B9 and B12 also leads to anemia. Then vitamin C deficiency leads to scurvy and swelling of the gums. So when sometimes you have problems in your gums and bleeding, sometimes you get mouth sores and all, isn't it? You get boils or sores inside your mouth. So to treat that, you'll have to take in more vitamin C rich foods or vitamin C tablets. So vitamin D deficiency leads to rickets. We know what is rickets, right? So where the legs become bow shaped like this, that is rickets, right? And it also leads to softening of the bones, which is called as osteomalacia. And then vitamin E leads to loss of fertility, okay, that is vitamin E deficiency. And vitamin K deficiency leads to non-clotting of blood. So further, calcium is very much important for us, isn't it? So you can see advertisements showing milk is very important for calcium. We have had this misconception. It's not a misconception, it is a truth. Milk is the richest source of calcium. But what about people who have dairy intolerance, who cannot consume milk? Yes, definitely, no doubt, milk is the richest source of calcium. But there are many people who cannot take milk, who cannot consume milk. So there are various other vegetarian sources of calcium also. Say for example, ragi. Ragi is a millet, isn't it? It's very popular here in Karnataka. So we make a dish called as ragi ball here, almost on a day-to-day basis. Every day we make it. So ragi is a millet. That millet has very good amount of calcium. And even sweet potato. I'm sure you all know about sweet potato, right? So usually during January season, you can find it in the market, right? In Delhi also you can find, when you go to India Gate. Near India Gate, you can find many vendors selling boiled sweet potato, isn't it? So that is also a very rich source of calcium. And again, the moringa. I'm sure you know moringa. Moringa leaves, right? So drumstick, which we call it as drumstick, that tree, the leaves from that moringa tree or moringa leaves. So all the components of that moringa tree, be it drumstick, be it the leaves, so those are very much rich in calcium. Okay, so there are various other vegetarian sources other than milk also, which have enormous amount of calcium. So if you are deficient of calcium, you'll have weak bones, tooth decay and so on. So iodine, as I already told you, deficiency leads to goiter, and iron deficiency leads to anemia, and fluorine deficiency leads to dental caries. So many times you must have observed people having a lot of yellow color on their teeth. You know, it is not the natural yellow color which some people have. See, some people do not have naturally white teeth, they have a slight yellowish teeth, and actually that is normal, quite normal. But for some people you can notice that they have a separate layer of yellow color, one layer of yellow color on their teeth. That happens because of fluorine deficiency, right? So not fluorine deficiency, fluorine deficiency or increased, I'm not sure, but it is somewhere related to fluorine. Fine. Then occupational related diseases. This is very, very important. Okay, occupational hazards or occupational related diseases. Remember when I discussed tribal studies, the problems of tribal communities. So their problems in education, unemployment, literacy, and shifting cultivation, indebtedness, landlessness. Remember, are you able to recall? It has been quite some time since we discussed the problems of tribal population. In that, we also discussed one important problem of the tribal population, that is health. Isn't it? Why they have poor health, what happens, what are the problems which they face when they are inside the forest, and once they move out of the forest due to the poor economic conditions, they are forced to live in very bad places with unhygienic conditions, as a result of which they become susceptible to various diseases, isn't it? So there you must also include these occupational related diseases. So please note down this in your materials. These occupational related diseases are very important and it should be included in the health section of the tribal problems over there. Okay, see, I'm repeating once again. In the tribal problems, when we discuss tribal problems, under that we discussed one section called as health. So what are the health problems of the tribal population? Under that we discussed various problems, and I told you later in epidemiological anthropology we will be discussing few diseases which you should include it over here. So these are the diseases, that is the occupation related diseases which I will be discussing now. This you have to include it under the health section of the tribal problems. Did I make it clear? So note it down in your materials now itself so that you do not forget it. Okay, so silicosis. Silicosis is a lung disease caused by breathing tiny bits of silica. So people who are working in these industries which use silica as the raw material, so because of their work, they will be breathing few fine particles of silica, and that leads to lung problems, and this is called as silicosis. Then asbestosis. So even up to some 10 years back, 10 or 15 years back, asbestos was very commonly used in many places. Even in construction of houses also, say on the terrace, you want some space, but you do not want to construct a room. You just want a place where you can, either wash your clothes, or you need some shade over there. So they used to put this asbestos sheet on top so that you get that shade over there. So very commonly it was used. Then later, nowadays you cannot find many people using asbestos for all these purposes because it is harmful for the health. So what happens after a certain time when you put those asbestos sheets, due to rain and sunlight, slowly it starts becoming brittle, and it starts becoming the powders start coming out of that asbestos sheet slowly, and when you inhale that you get respiratory disorders. Okay, so that is why it is not, nowadays you cannot find many places who are using these asbestos sheets. So asbestos also, again, when you are working in these industries which deal with asbestos, again that dust, when it is inhaled, it leads to lung problems. Okay, so the asbestos fibers enter the lungs and gradually damage them over the time. So here we have silicosis. Are you all following what we are discussing? You must say something. Silicosis, asbestosis, byssinosis or byssinosis. I don't know how to pronounce this. Byssinosis. So again, this is a lung disease by occupational exposure to dust from cotton, hemp, flax. So cotton, after removing the cotton from the plant, it goes through a lot of processes. The seeds are removed and the cotton impurities are removed. Then it is finally made into fine threads, and then those threads are woven, and then only we get the garment, isn't it? We get the cloth, and then that cloth is cut and made into a garment. So during this process, the people working in these industries inhale a lot of cotton fibers or even hemp and flax, and that again causes symptoms like asthma, and it can also cause permanent lung damage. Then we have anthracosis. Anthracosis, again, it is caused by the inhalation of coal dust. Okay, people working in coal industries, they inhale that dust, and that leads to the coal dust which is inhaled cannot be destroyed by the body, and that eventually leads to thickening and scarring of the lungs. So we are speaking so much of these occupational hazards, which leads to the damage of the lungs, isn't it? Which is leading to respiratory problems and then finally causing permanent damage to the lungs. What about people who smoke? That is voluntary, isn't it? At least these are occupational related hazards. When they do not have a choice, they have to work in these industries, and because of that, they succumb to these diseases. But smoking is voluntary, isn't it? So many people voluntarily damage their lungs, smoking. Then even what about this hookah? So many people have this misconception that hookah does not contain nicotine. So even I have had few of these arguments with my friends. Some of them say no, it is just flavored. You know, you get many flavors of hookah, isn't it? So they say it is just the flavor and it does not contain any nicotine. But no matter how many times I tell them, it does contain nicotine, and what percentage also I had read and I had told them. But they do not agree with that. So if it does not contain nicotine, why would people inhale it? And what happens when you inhale hookah? There is some kind of pleasure which you get, right? So same is the case with smoking also. That is why you smoke, isn't it? So let me see how many of you all will give me more insights about whether hookah contains nicotine or not. Okay, you tell me. Next comes bagasosis. Okay, again that is a occupational lung disease caused by the inhalation of bagasse or sugarcane dust, isn't it? So sugarcane fiber, so once the juice is extracted from the sugarcane, that remaining part, that is called as bagasse, that is used in manufacturing of paper, cardboard, rayon. Rayon also is a material which they used to manufacture clothes, right? So all that is made out of bagasse. Then tuberculosis. So it results from smoking, chewing, stuffing of tobacco. It is not just smoking of tobacco. There are various forms of tobacco consumed by people, isn't it? One form is smoking. The other one, they make it into a powder and they chew it, chewing tobacco. And you have all this, what is that? Many other ways, right? So all these are again affecting the lungs. Then not just that, tobacco also has an impact on fertility also in men. So how many of you know about this? So usually many, again I will not say all of them, many chain smokers fail to become a father, right? Because it reduces the fertility, it reduces the sperm count in males. So smoking reduces the sperm counts in males. Okay, so it leads to reduced fertility. Then again anthrax. So we all know pretty well anthrax is caused by Bacillus anthracis, a germ that lives in the soil, and it affects the animals such as cattle, sheep, goats and such things. So people who work in these industries which are related to extraction of the wool from the animals and all these. So you know there are various wool products that are made, right, from sheep and yak and other animals. They extract the wool and they make it into sweaters, shawls and other. So people who are involved in these industries, they are prone to getting this anthrax disease because the Bacillus anthracis, the germ, that will be present in these animals. That is actually a germ which is present in the soil, and it affects the animals such as cattle, sheep and goats. And when people are working in these industries along with these animals, they are also prone to get this disease, anthrax. Okay. And that is why even there are other, why do we take tetanus injection? So now that we started discussing about the germs that live in soil, many a times when you have a fall and you bruise your knees or your arms or elbows or your leg, or suppose you fall or you hit something and there's an iron implement and it cuts your leg or your hand, and you get a wound and you start bleeding. And if you go to the doctor first thing they will do is they will administer a TT injection, right? In short we call it as TT, or it is the tetanus injection. So what is the purpose of this? Why do they administer tetanus injection? And is there a time duration between which you have to administer it? Say you get the wound today, and can you take TT after 1 month? Just let me know. Okay. Then we have siderosis. Okay, that is the people who do these welding occupations, they usually get this siderosis. Then farmer's lung. Farmer's lung. So again, this is caused by the breathing in the dust of the hay. So when they are during the harvest, after harvesting the grains, they have to separate the stalk from the grain. So that during that process, they will inhale the dust from the hay, and that leads to this condition called as farmer's lung. So these are the various occupational hazards. So this is very important in this chapter also, and it is important when you are discussing the health problems of the tribal population also. So please do not skip this and read it properly. We shall take a break now. So the next topic for today. So hope you all understood epidemical anthropology properly. There's nothing much to worry in that chapter. Whatever we discussed in epidemical anthropology are basic things which we learned during school times itself, isn't it? So we shall move on to the next chapter now, that is we shall move on to the next chapter single factor, multi-factor. I'll tell you the unit number. It is unit it is unit 9.2 in paper 1 anthropology. Unit 9.2 in paper 1 anthropology. It is called Mendelian genetics in man family study. Mendelian genetics. I have already given the material for this topic long back. Some 2 weeks back I had given the material, but we could not discuss this topic. So since we have very less time now, we shall finish discussion of this topic in this lecture, and in the next lecture we shall start off with another fresh topic. Okay, so Mendelian genetics in man family study, that is unit 9.2 in paper 1. Mendelian genetics in man family study. Here we will be discussing multi-factor, single factor, lethal, sublethal genes and polygenic inheritance in man. Okay. So for this particular topic, that is Mendelian genetics in man family study, I have given you the material already, and however I'm still updating the materials. So once that is ready, I'll be sharing with you the updated materials also. So as of now, you can read from the material which I have provided. Okay. So once I finish updating, I have yet to give other materials also. That is land reforms, right? I told you I will be giving you material for land reforms and one more LAR Act and another material also which I am still working on. Okay. So once I'll slowly finish all those materials, and I am also updating this material also, that is Mendelian genetics in man family study, that is single factor, multi-factor, monogenic and polygenic inheritance. So once it is updated, I will share the updated material as well. So as of now, you study with the material which I have provided now. So we already discussed in our previous chapters, when we discussed pedigree analysis, I told you what are the Mendel's laws of inheritance. Are you able to recall? So first there are many laws of inheritance which was proposed by Gregor Johann Mendel, who is considered as the father of genetics. So what he did was he did hybridization experiments in the pea plants which was growing in his monastery. So during his free time, he went to the backyard of his monastery and he did pea plants and he did hybridization experiments among the pea plants, and he gave us various laws of inheritance. That is how genes are getting transmitted from one generation to another. So among that, the important laws are law of dominance, law of independent assortment, law of segregation. So these are the three important laws which we studied over there, because understanding of those laws is important for these topics. So first we discuss the law of dominance. So what does the law of dominance state? That in a heterozygous condition, there will be one gene which is dominant and which will express itself, and that gene is called as a dominant gene. And there will be one character or trait or one gene which suppresses itself in the presence of a dominant gene. That gene is called as the recessive gene, and this is called as the law of dominance. Then we also discussed the law of segregation and law of independent assortment. That is, even though the gene for dominance or gene for recessive have stayed along with the other gene for one complete generation, when they are forming alleles, they will assort independently. They do not influence each other. That is called as law of dominance and law of segregation and law of independent assortment. So we have discussed in depth about all of this when we began our chapter on pedigree analysis. So I just gave you a revision of that. Fine. So initially, Gregor Johann Mendel discovered the law of inheritance. That is, he tried to understand why is it that whenever we cross two plants, in the first generation, the plants are always tall. He observed that he took two pairs of contrasting characters, one tall plant and one dwarf plant, or one plant having white seeds and one plant having yellow seeds, one plant having round seeds and one plant having wrinkled seeds. Like this, he took two pairs of contrasting characters and he did hybridization experiment. That is, he crossed them. So for several generations he did and several experiments he did, and he found that in the first generation always the plant will exhibit one trait only. That is, the plant will always be tall in nature. And then in the second generation, he found that there is a different ratio, that is phenotypic ratio and different genotypic ratio. So we have discussed all of this. So when he was performing the experiments on inheritance of traits from one generation to another, he used the term factors. So Gregor Johann Mendel understood that there is something which is getting transmitted from one generation to another, which is responsible for producing the character in the next generation. Isn't it? Say you have a dark skin color. So your father or your mother might have dark skin color, isn't it? Or forget dark skin color, some other characteristic, some other character, some trait which you have acquired from your parents. That is because you have inherited those genes from your parents, isn't it? So Gregor Johann Mendel said that when he, based on the experiments which he performed, he said that there is some traits which are getting transmitted from one generation to another. So present day we know that is called as genes. Isn't it? We know that we have got those genes from our parents, and that is why we have that character. It might be the genes for tallness, or it might be the genes for the shape of our nose, for the shape of our ears, for the hairs, for our skin color, for the shape of our eyes, for our body structure. So all this is dependent on the genes which we get from our parents, isn't it? So even Gregor Johann Mendel, based on the experiments which he did on the pea plants, he said that there is something which is getting transferred from one generation to another, and that is responsible for producing the characters or traits in the next generation. But he did not know the term gene. Okay, so he said these something which is getting transferred from one generation to another, he called them as factors. But later, now we understood that is called as genes. Okay, so try to understand that factor and gene are not different. Earlier, Gregor Johann Mendel, he did the hybridization experiments and gave the laws of inheritance. And based on the experiments, he understood that there are certain traits or characters which are moving from one generation to another, and these traits or characters he called it as factors. But later we coined the term gene, and now we call it as genes. So earlier days, Gregor Johann Mendel did not have any idea about the term gene, so he called these traits as factors, and later point of time we changed that and we call that same as genes now. Okay, so no confusion about what is factor and what is gene, isn't it? So, so one factor was inherited from the father and one factor was inherited from the mother. And now we call these factors as gene, because that time the word or the term gene was not coined. During the time of Gregor Johann Mendel, he did not have any knowledge about the term gene. So he called them as factors. Later we coined the term gene, and now we call it as gene. Okay. So when we say single factor, we refer to monogeneous